Internet! Welcome to 2.5 Braids. This is our latest episode of Survivor Season 42, Episode 3. You can break it all down here, talk all about it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. You can like our Facebook page, facebook.com/PaperMoProd, Paper Productions on Facebook. You can email the show directly to papermoproductions@gmail.com. Subscribe, share the post, tell your friends, and we'll break it all down, talk all about it here. We're getting out way later than we wanted to. There's been a lot going on this week, and I am actually recording in the car, so I do apologize for any ambient sounds you do hear. But I'm going to go ahead and talk all about it here and break down this episode, get it out to you. We'll get the next one out, try to get out the same day if we can, or at least the day after, so you don't have to worry about all that. Like I said, subscribe so you get it right when we do get it out. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this episode 3 of Survivor 42. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 42. It's been a fun season so far. So I wanted to definitely want to talk about it and break it all down here. We're going to go over the 3 moments that mattered. So we'll talk all about that, 3 moments that mattered. We'll talk about the who did not survive this week, and then the top 3 and bottom 3. There's been a lot of, it's been kind of hard to pick a top 3. A lot of bad gameplay, and not for nothing, but I love, I have no issue with, I like new player seasons. I like seeing players do it for the first time, but I've said it before. I love the returning player season. Especially if it's a good cast. People loved 31, they loved 40, but they hated 34, and they hated other returning player seasons. The 38 with a partial return. Don't give me a partial returning player season unless there's going to be a theme around it. Maybe maybe, but don't give me a partial player. Don't give me a partial returning player season. Don't give me whatever. Give me don't give me a return player season. They have 4 legends and 2 other people who are 5 other people who are okay, and then 3 who are nobody's ever heard of. Don't give me that. Give me a full-on returning player season, and if you can, give me people who are all in the same boat too, right? So like I said, the reason 31 was so great, they're all fan favorites. They're all voted by the fans. They've all played once and didn't win. That's perfect. There's nothing. Nobody has an advantage. Nobody's, some people maybe are a little more popular, maybe are a little better game players, I guess, but ultimately, they're all basically in the same spot. 34 was not that. 38 was not that. 40 was, right? So 40 was all winners, right? They've all played the game. They've all won. Someone played multiple times. Some are legends, and that hurt them in the game. Being kind of a legend hurt them, in the game. Not quite Tony, but everybody else. The Boston Robs and Sandras and them, the very, very famous, well-known people, that hurt them in the game. But it was as close to even as you could get starting point, and that's what I like. And the reason I mention this here is because they say play like it's your second time, blah blah blah, but they still promote big moves because big moves are good TV. Bad gameplay is kind of good TV, and that's what we've been kind of talking about here is there's been a lot of gameplay that's not been very good. And I think one thing you can say, some people watch Survivor for different reasons. Obviously they all have their reasons, and one thing about this new cast is they do make a lot of mistakes. They make a lot of they fall for a lot of the tricks. Production says, hey, make big moves. Well, that's good TV, but it's better for your game very often. And if you said you watched last season, and obviously these players didn't see last season, but Erica's season, she won the game without really doing much. She really didn't do much. And all these other players are making big moves, and they're blowing up their own game and getting themselves killed, knocked out of the game. 39 was very similar to that. 38 was, pretty much the same as that. So making big moves, yes, production wants you to do it, but a lot of times it's a bad idea. So players with experience who've done it before, they're not going to just listen to production and say, oh yeah, cool, definitely. They're there to win. They're there to make smart moves, not necessarily big moves. And I think that's one thing I like about the returning player seasons is they don't have a lot of people who are terrible at the game. And even if they are terrible at the game, they at least have done it before. So at least they have some experience, and they can a lot of times they'll overcorrect, right? They'll say, oh, I made way too many moves last time, I'll make way fewer this time, or I made way too few moves, I'll make way bigger moves this time. Sure, all that is fine, but the fact is, I don't think. I think a returning player season is, I think you're way better off with, players who know what they're doing, second chances again or whatever, Whatever. So I think all those would be. I think those, I think the returning player seasons kind of give you a little bit better, a little bit better gameplay because they're not going to just, I got to make a big move so I get asked back. Well, a lot of times you are being asked back. Go win, So I think it's smarter to make, obviously, in today's day and age, it's really hard to do absolutely nothing and win. Eric could kind of try to redefine that, but it is a good thing to make a smart move, not just go out and make a big move. So I think I've thought about that enough, but also too, one thing I like about the season, not kind of I guess a little different than that, a little bit on the side of that, is this season they've cut back a lot on the preaching, a lot of the woke stuff, and I think people watch Survivor for different reasons. Some people watch for the challenges, which is fun. Some people watch it for the the adventures, the gossip, the craziness, the reality TV-ness of it all. Some people watch it because it's still a social experiment. Some people watch it for a lot like me, watch it for the strategy. And a lot of us, a lot of the big fans and super fans will watch it for the strategy of the game, and they want to see that. And some people want to see the personalities in action, and all that's fine. That's all good, all well and good. But very few people watch it to be preached at. And Jeff still says it's a social experiment. It's the greatest social experiment ever. I think it's the greatest game ever. I think it's a social game, and as far as a strategy game, I think it's maybe the greatest social game ever invented. But as far as social experiment goes, I don't see it as that anymore. I think that was kind of the first season, first few seasons when they're trying to take people from different walks of life, and they're focusing on the survival aspect and building a community and blah blah blah. That was what it was. There's so much production interference. The social experiment is not anymore. I mean, if you're going to divide, the only reason I would say it stopped becoming a social experiment when they stopped casting people based on demographics and psychographics, right? So when they were like, okay, we're all men versus women. Okay, all right, yeah, sure. One world, again, not really a social experiment, maybe, or you're casting people based on age, or you're casting people based on where they're from. If they're again, they never even did that either. But like a Midwest versus East versus South, whatever. Midwest versus West versus East versus South, or whatever it is. That might make me better. Or you said you do Democrats versus Republicans. That would be an interesting social experiment. We could probably use something like that now in this country, or maybe not. Maybe they would make it worse. But either way, I think. It really stopped becoming a social experiment when all that happens. They keep trying to say it's a social experiment, and it's more of a strategy game. And I think when Survivor stays in its lane a little bit more, it's a little bit better. Because yes, you might get people who really, the super fans who go on the internet and vote, for, things they want or whatever, and or talk the loudest voices. I think the Twitter people and people who follow the survivors on Twitter and make a lot of noise and tweet Jeff Probst. They're probably the ones who like the the social awareness, social justice stuff, but the average fan doesn't. And if you're gonna have a show that you make exclusively for super fans, well, there's a lot of things you can do. They don't listen to their fans a lot, but when they do, it's some things that annoy the middle of America. The average fan. That stuff annoys them. That stuff annoys them. That stuff pisses them off. So they listen to him with that stuff, but not with go back to Final 2 and get rid of the fire-making twist. Just for an example, I'm just pulling off the top of my head. So that stuff though, I do like the fact that they've kind of cut back on that though. That's what I'm saying. I like that the fact that they haven't been so much on the here's how you should live your life. You're watching this reality TV show to learn how to live your life. Like that, nobody cares. Okay, and I think that when they cut back on that, it's made the show a lot better. You're impacting more people in a positive way. And by entertaining them, people don't. I think a lot of people turn on their TV not to get a life lesson. Don't think you're bigger than you are. Stay in your lane, make entertaining television, and that's it. And they're doing that, so I like that a lot better. Let's try to get some guests on here next few weeks. Obviously, Jessica's been watching in the background, so she hasn't really wanted to jump on the podcast. She hasn't really paying that close attention, but she's liking a lot better than she did last season, just for the fact that again, they're not preaching to you as much. We'll see if we can get her back on, or we can be back on next week, whatever. So we can not have to hear my voice all the time. But Either way, we'll go ahead and dive in here. We'll talk about the 3 moments that mattered, talk about who did not survive, and then the top 3 bottom 3. We'll start with the moment that mattered, number 1, which in this case is going to be dangerous challenge. The moment that mattered, number 1, and for the 3 moments that mattered, I try to whenever possible incorporate some history into the episode. Something that's happened in the past. This happened on this season. I'd like to try to include that if I can, if it's relevant. And this one brought me back a little bit. This is an unsafe challenge. So this one brought me back a couple different things. One was when Tasha Fox started drowning in second chances. They had to have medical help her back to shore, basically help her finish the challenge. And the challenge was basically they had to go get a ladder out of the water, and then basically lift it up from the bottom of the water, untie it, and then lift it up and get some bag of balls, I guess, to throw and land on, or not sand, I guess not balls, sandbags, to land on the round discs that were elevated on the land, right? So they basically swim out there, go on the bottom of the water, grab a ladder, bring it out, use the ladder to get the 2 different bags of sandbags, bundles of sandbags, and then land them once they get back to shore. But the wind, the waves were huge, and the waves were, people were having difficulty staying above water. They were having difficulty swimming, even floating. And Jonathan and his team did really well. I mean, he went down and got him and brought him up pretty quickly, but it wasn't the case for all the other teams. And in fact, they had to stop the challenge so that the safety team could go out, bring the sandbags in, put them on the beach, and then they could race back up to the beach and land them for the two teams that needed that. So that was interesting. It never happened before. I mean, it did remind me a little bit also too with the breaking the third wall, with the breaking the fourth wall, I guess, with the co-wrong challenge when Sydney was passed out, and then Debbie passed out, and then Caleb passed out and had to be medically evacuated over it. So that was another interesting thing that happened, and that was kind of reminded me a little bit of that. But Jeff in this case called it, so we're stopping it here. Weather's too, the wind and the waves are too high. We have to just modify the challenge a little bit because we didn't expect it to be this bad on the day of the challenge. And it did remind me a little bit of when Jeff was. It was one of the first challenges in Millennials for Gen X when Michaela's top got ripped off basically, and she and Zeke was talking about how the guys in the team are huge. And the Millennials went Gen X and they dominated in that challenge. And it was like the huge waves and everything, but that was done way closer to the beach. It was way shallower water, so even the waves were huge. They might knock against you a little bit, make it a little more difficult, but nobody was going to drown in that water. I mean, unless they get tackled. And this one, it was difficult to stay above water and everything, so it was definitely an unsafe challenge, and they called it for that reason. So, nobody wants to see anybody struggling to swim. That's not really entertaining at television. I mean, I guess for a minute maybe, but beyond that, glad they ended it challenge and went from there. Moment number 2 that mattered was read the fine print. So this one took me back to the whole Cirie Fields of it all, right? With Sarah, when she tried to use Sarah's extra vote, when she did, Sarah gave her extra vote or whatever it was, extra vote to try to try to build trust with Cirie, and then Cirie was planning on using it to vote out Sarah with it, and then Troy then pointed out that they didn't read the fine print, and then Cirie reads it again, and the fine print said basically this is not transferable. You can't give it to somebody else. It has to be whoever has it, has to play it basically. They can't let somebody else use it. So, which was weird. That's weird they even put that in there, and they haven't ever done that since because they didn't expect to have to that be an issue. But in this case, Danny wanted to vote out. I guess he wanted to keep Mike. It was kind of not clear really what he wanted, but I guess he wanted to keep Mike till the merge because Mike, get bigger guy, pretty good in challenges, that kind of thing. So he asked Mike for the rules on the advantage, on the idol he found, and he told Mike, "Hey, don't read any, don't say your phrase until you hear someone else say it, so because you don't want anybody else knowing that you don't have to try to say it every challenge. If you hear someone else say it, then you can say it. If you hear 2 people say it, then you can say it." And that A is to help protect Mike, but B because they want to keep him want to make him unable to vote and keep him having an active idol as long as possible, which makes sense. So they told Mike, hey, hold off on it. But then Daniel had the idea. He wanted to read the fine print to see what would happen at the merge if it wasn't ever read. Right? If this phrase was never said and the active idol was never activated, he figures, okay, well, Mike will just go to the merge, and he won't have an idol because that won't be activated. He won't be able to vote until then. So basically keeping Mike neutered basically to the merge. But he read the fine print, and the fine print said after the merge, if the phrase isn't said and all the idols aren't found, this becomes a regular idol. It's no longer a three-way shared idol; it's a regular idol. So that was that. So he did end up deciding, well, maybe it's better to just get rid of Mike then, so he doesn't have anything at the merge, and we can get rid of him. He can't vote to protect himself, so who cares? So that was kind of reading the fine print, and it definitely reminded me a lot of the moment with Suri and Troy's end, and I'm thinking, that's non-transferable in the fine print there. Moment that mattered number 3. Oh, and before I get to that too, it was interesting too. They kind of showed the preview how Mike was going to lose the idol again, and he buried it last week. Couldn't remember where he buried it, and this week, I guess he found it and gave it to Dan. Then Dan lost part of it. Lost like the thing that says this is a real idol or whatever. So they had to go find it, and that was a whole big fiasco. Moment match number 3 was another unanimous vote. This is getting really crazy. Three people voted out of the game, all by 0 votes against, 0 votes for or against. I guess you should say 0 votes against. So Zach, won a 5-0, and then I think it was they played a shot in the dark and couldn't do anything. And then Mariah, I think, did the same thing. They played her shot in the dark and went out 5-0. And now Jenny. So it's been interesting because of that. I mean, Jenny, and this is again a very different. This one kind of hasn't happened, kind of has. Usually after a revote, one of two things happens, right? After a tie, I should say, they revote and everybody votes for one person, or it was just this flush idol, and the majority just goes ahead and votes, and they're deadlocked, and they get rid of who they want to get rid of. Or 2, they vote again, it's still a tie, and now it's deadlocked, and they go to rocks. It's happened 3 times that way that it's gone to rocks. The only other time it didn't really, that I can remember, was when it was the finale, the final 6 of Second Chances, and Cambodia, yeah, and they that one was that was the most complicated vote in our history, for multiple reasons, but the main reason was because they voted for, or I guess Jeremy won immunity, or Spencer won immunity, and they all voted for Kimmy wanted to flip on her allies, so she was on a 4-person alliance, and she knew she was 4th, so she wanted to flip on them, try to make a final 3 deal with Kelly and Keith. So she voted with Kelly and Keith against Tasha, I think. And then, or they targeted Jeremy. I think it's crazy. They targeted Jeremy. Jeremy played his idol. Jeremy then targeted Kelly. Kelly played her idol. So all the votes got canceled out. So 6 votes total. All of them were canceled out. So they revoted, and they voted for Tasha, and they knew Kimmy flipped, so they voted for Kimmy. So it was a tie between Kimmy. They voted again, and it was a tie between Kimmy and Tasha this time. And basically what it came down to was Keith and on the revote it was Keith and Kelly voting for Tasha on the revote, and Spencer and Jeremy voted for Kimmy on the revote, and so it was a tie, and they're deadlocked, right? So they say we all have to vote one way, or we all vote, or if we have to go to rocks. But the kicker was that people who, as it was in this case, people with the votes don't go to rocks. Everybody else does, right? So people who are tied don't get to draw rocks. Everybody else who voted for them and couldn't come up with a decision do go to rocks. So people who then people who have immunity, or people who get the votes get immunity, right? So people who are about to go home now get immunity, and everybody else just draw rocks. Well, in that case, in that most complicated votes for our history, Jeremy played an idol, so he was safe. Kylie played an idol, she was safe. Spencer won immunity, so he was safe. And then the other two both got votes, so they were part of the deadlock, so they were safe. So the only one drawing rocks was Keith. So it was either you decide on one person or Keith goes home, right? So Keith said, "Fine." He kind of even reluctantly didn't really want to go against Kimmy, but he reluctantly said, "All right, fine, I'll join up against Kimmy." So they came to a unanimous decision in that case. In this case, it was a little bit not quite as complicated, but still pretty complicated because you had Mike who didn't have his vote, and it was funny. They had the votes, 2 votes for this one, 2 votes for this one, no votes left. Because there were 6 people voting and only 4 votes. So, Hai was very confused, Lydia was very confused, but Lydia got 2 votes. And Jenny got 2 votes. And Chanel couldn't vote, and Mike couldn't vote because Chanel went to risk her. Chanel went to the, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit here, but Chanel went to the summit, I guess you would say, and she risked her vote and lost it, which is the first time we've seen that happen, I think, that someone's actually, both or all 3 players have risked their vote and lost their vote. It was absolutely idiotic. We'll talk about that coming up, but for my winner pick. Sorry for that. So, not only that, Mike still didn't have his activated idol, so he still couldn't vote. So now the people who have to decide on who's getting who they're agreeing on are only the people who can vote, and the people who are voting against obviously don't vote in the revote. So now there's only 2 people voting in the revote, and it's Hai and it's Daniel. And if they don't come up with a consensus, all 4 of them, Mike and Hai and Daniel and Chanel, all self-draw rocks though, even though they couldn't vote. So really, it came down to, well, can Daniel and Hai come up with one name? And they're like, hey, just Hai, vote with us, blah blah blah. Hai's like, I'll go rocks, I don't care. He's looking at it, he's like, I got a 1 in 4 shot of it not going my way. Right? If one of the 3 of you pull a rock, I'm in better shape than I was. Than I was slipping on Lydia. So, all right, fine. He's not going anywhere. So Daniel decides that he's like, well, basically either I vote for Jenny or we draw rocks. And we'll kind of talk about the dynamics of that a little bit more. Daniel played this horribly. Hai played it really well. But either way, ultimately, bottom line, after the revote, which never happens, after a deadlocked revote, revote and another revote, and they're still deadlocked, it never happens that they end up changing their mind. They end up coming together and making one decision. Because they do have to on the revote because it was an idol flush. In this case, it wasn't. So, but Daniel's like, all right, fine, I don't want to do it, but I have to go with Jenny then. So Jenny ended up getting 2 votes, and then 1 vote each, and then 2-0 in the final spot there, and that's they come to the consensus to vote. The 2 of them who could vote come to the consensus and vote out Jenny, and make her the fourth person out of the game, 3rd person vote out. And so it was very complicated. Again, another complicated vote, but another very unique situation. And it's a good thing about Survivor, they're making a lot of unique situations. The bad thing about Survivor is so much production interference. It's like, what game is this? Is this Survivor? Like, half people can't vote. People vote twice. Like, what is going on, right? So I mean, even somebody, I think whoever it was, Chanel, I think, got her second vote, or somebody got a second vote, but they can't use it because they can't vote. They lost a vote today, so they can use it 2 next time. But they can't vote today. Like, there's so much. It's so much, and it's fun. It's also gets a little bit over the top with production interference, but either way, I digress. So that was what happened there, and then we'll talk about now who did not survive next. And my who did not survive, obviously it's Jenny, and nobody really did anything right this episode, really. I mean, as far as making good decisions or anything like that. And Jenny, was loyal. She got out manipulated. She was expendable. She was fine in challenges. She was smart, but wasn't super athletic. I mean, she was fine. Didn't stand out in any particular way. And I had her kind of middle of the pack for me in my power rankings for that reason. I didn't see her go out this early, but I didn't see her winning. So, and I guess I guess I'll just say this. Her final words kind of summed it up, I guess you can say, because she said her final words when she said, I guess Daniel valued his friendship with Hai and Lydia over me, or with Hai over me, or with Lydia over me, whatever it was. And I guess it's true, because that's why she was the target. They basically, they're gonna say, well, who are we going after? If their target was like, if they would have gone after Chanel, right? And that's quote unquote Dan's number one ally. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's what they go after. That's Dan's number one. Maybe he does go to Rox. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't flip on that ally. But she said that they voted her. Daniel decided to go against her instead of against Lydia because he wasn't as close with Jenny as he was with other people, which is probably true. But that wasn't why she got voted out. She got voted out because Daniel's self-interested. And everybody's self-interested. Daniel was not about to go to Rox for probably anybody. And he even threw his number one ally under the bus, in Chanel, earlier in the tribal council. So, I don't know. I don't like it. I mean, she said, she voted out because, they value other people more than her. Daniel decided to turn on her, basically. But I don't think he turned on her for anybody. He didn't turn on her for Lydia. He turned on her so he didn't have to go to Rox. Like, if it was like, he would have, I really think he would have probably done that against anybody because he didn't want to go to Rox. And certainly not for Jenny. So I think there's parts of it that he didn't want to go against Jenny. But I think even more so than that, he didn't want to go to Rox, period. You can take out the for Jenny part. I think he didn't want to go to Rox. And, maybe they had a closer bond, whatever, then she's still in the game. But she formed a good alliance with Mike. Beyond that, it didn't seem like she really had a super tight relationship with really anybody else. So a pair, and that tribe was the tribe of three pairs. And, we see how that goes. That never goes well. I mean, Liz Markin and Peter Bagenstos and Korunk can attest to that, right? They thought they had, they thought their pair was in with Debbie and Joe, and it turns out they weren't. And so Liz goes out, and then Peter goes out not far after, So it was being in a pair is great, but you can't really win the game in a pair, especially in modern Star with all the swaps and the six to a tribe and 3 tribe formats and all that. So. Either way, I think that's really what happened. I think her bond wasn't that great with anybody outside of really Mike. She was okay in challenge. It wasn't like it wasn't a major factor either way, for better or worse. And when the only way she goes out, obviously she goes out with 2 votes against her, and the tribe was 6, but 2 of her allies didn't have votes. So you're playing with fire when you're risking your vote like that, and you can get burned. And in this case, Jenny was the one who risked their vote. Their ally got burned, right? And the only way Jenny goes out is if something crazy like that happens, where 2 people lose their votes. And they did, and she didn't have a good enough bond to get her through when knife to their throat. And Hai is like looking at. He's like, hey, look, if I get rid of Lydia, I'm gone next. Whereas that's not the case for Daniel necessarily. And Hai's like, if I pull one over, to our side, now it's 3-2 instead of 4-1 against me. It's 3-2 on I have the numbers, and Daniel kind of looks at that too. He's like, yeah, if I cut one of these people here, I can jump to the other side. Now I'm the swing vote. I'm 3-2, and they're probably gonna beg me to come back, so I can be jumping back and forth between the alliances for a while. So we'll see what happens. But Lydia said, or Jenny said when she got voted out, why she said why she got voted out was because her she wasn't valued as much as other people on her tribe, which is probably true, but I think more so than that. I don't think it was just that alone. I think it was the fact that, again, if somebody, you have to have a really, really tight bond with somebody to go to Rox for them, or know that it's your only shot to, I think Hai was going to go Rox for Lydia. He was, because he knows that if she's gone, he's next, and maybe there's a swap and whatever, and he can get away from that. But he's taking a huge chance, obviously, for 1 in 4 shot of going home. Whereas if he goes for Lydia, odds are they lose another challenge, he's gone. So he was willing to go rocks. Daniel wasn't, and so the person who was 100% confident against the person who was wishy-washy, the person who was confident I was going to take it, and that was certainly the case here. And Jenny, of course, was the collateral damage in this case, unfortunately for her. So that's why Jenny did not survive. So let's go ahead and talk about. Oh, and by the way, Jenny, like I said, she was middle of the pack for me. I had her, I think I had her like around 13th or 11th. But yeah, she didn't do great, and I got really no read on her at pregame, and so I guess I could have seen her going either way. But let's go ahead and talk about the top 3 and bottom 3 this week, and we'll start off here with Mike. So Mike's in the bottom 3, and Mike's in the bottom 3 because he lost number 1 ally. B, he's now in the bottom because even though I think that's I think they formed a new alliance with Hai, Daniel, and Lydia. So I think they're now the top 3, which means Mike's on the bottom. He also can't vote until he finds the idol. They know he has the idol, so he's not in great shape. He's pretty good in the challenges, I guess, but I don't think Chanel really likes him either. So I think he's I think he had Jenny, he had Daniel. I don't think Daniel's with him anymore, and he can't vote. He has an idol. If he can get that, he'll be good, but it's not active. So unless he can activate it, I definitely see him going out. I see him as a bit of a Brad from last season, just kind of trying to be a big player pre-merge, but not really making it much beyond that, and losing the ability to vote and everything like that. I think it's gonna be a problem for him. So I'm not feeling too good about Mike. I think he could definitely be in some trouble coming up here, but it'll depend on how the challenges and the media challenges go. It's been one thing I like better about this season also is there's been way more competitive as far as the challenges go. Been way closer. I would love to see them go back to the old school of they pick the tribes, the players, right? Pick 3 captains, they pick the tribes, something like that, a random draw, right? I mean, the producers don't like that because they want more control of the game, of course, but when they stacked the tribes like last season, the blue team was just, they're great. They didn't lose, the other teams didn't have as good of players. They had older players or players who weren't as athletic or whatever, and that was not great. Ricard was good in the individual challenges, wasn't great in the team challenges type of thing, right? So, I like how evenly matched there, so that's definitely a good thing. So that could help them, do well in the challenges. But like I said, there's not been any tribe who dominated. Each team has lost at least one player to a vote. Obviously, Jackson pulled earlier in the game, but each player has had to vote somebody out. So everything in the tribal council, which is cool. Number 2, I have Chanel. Chanel didn't do very good. Really, just again, she thought it through. She's like, yeah, I really need my vote today, but I think I can get a vote. I think I can keep my vote and get something. Because she got sent to the summit. I hate when they send her to the summit after the challenge because you already know who's going to the tribal council. So they picked somebody to go, and then Chanel went as well. Yes, Omer. I think it was Omer the one who picked him. That tribe won. They picked Chanel to go, and then they decided that Omer wanted to go as well. So Omer went with her. And I didn't like it. I don't like when they send somebody after the challenge. So after the challenge, you already know who's going to a tribal council, who's doing what. It's just dumb. Why do that? Why? And not for nothing, but she knew she was going to tribal council and needed her vote, but she risked it anyways to try to get something. Like, that was one of the dumbest plays ever. Like, you need your vote tonight. If you can get something extra with it, fantastic. But your vote is more important than pretty much anything in the game. Especially an extra vote, which you could use at a next tribal council. It's silly. Everybody wants to play the game. Everybody wants to make the move. But as Janet taught us in season 39, sometimes not playing the game is the best thing you can do for yourself. All right? Sometimes it's the best thing you can do for yourself. So just go there and have a conversation, build a good bond. And guess what? Now, I guess, because Omer lost his vote too, I guess, right? I think so. Now he lost his vote as well. So instead of you hooking him up and giving him something he can use, and then you build that alliance, now he might be mad at you because you cost him his vote. And granted, if the shoe's on the foot, I'd be saying the same thing. If Omer was going to tribal council and Chanel, well, she should risk her vote then. I mean, put it this way. There's no harm ever. Like, there should be a penalty if you both don't risk your vote. Because it's easy, just nobody risks their vote, it's good to go. But everyone wants something. Everyone wants a cool toy to play with, so they risk their vote. It's dumb. And Chanel knew she needed her vote. She knew she had to have it. And if she had it, it's 3-2. It doesn't matter. There's no tiebreak. There's nothing. Lydia's gone. Jenny's still in the game, and nothing blows up like it was. All I ended up doing. So really dumb to risk your vote. Like in most situations, it's dumb to risk your vote. In this situation, where you know Mike doesn't have a vote, and if you lose your vote, it's a 2-2 tie. But you're trying to be, again, self-interested. Players are self-interested. Big moves, is fine. Being self-interested is good too. But what's in your best interest? To now be down, potentially, Daniel. If Daniel did flip, now you're down 3-2 in the numbers. You go from being up 4-2 to being down 3-2, just like that, because you risked your vote. And you didn't if you got the extra vote, maybe you could, do something. But now, even if that happens this way, somehow Jenny gets knocked out with an idol or whatever, and Daniel flipped 3-2. you having extra vote, it's still 3-3. It doesn't matter. So it's pointless. No excuse, no reason to do that. Again, just trying to. Oh, I want to make good TV. I want to make a big move. Oh, I want to. Okay, wait, great. But being self-interested means surviving another vote sometimes. And that's what I get. Maybe if you want, if you want to learn, take something from Erica. Her thing was survive one vote. That's the best thing you do in Survivor is to survive a vote. Get by each vote. And things break your way, whatever. But I think it's way more important to know where the advantages are than to have them yourself. Because you can knowing where they are, you can navigate around them. The good thing about the advantages is they're secret. Right? So it doesn't make any sense. It's not smart, and she shouldn't have risked her vote. It's a very bad decision. Very bad decision that cost Jenny and could have potentially cost her as well. So number 2 on the bottom 2, of course, is Chanel. Again, I really want more for my winner pick. But again, a lot of these players, they get out here and I want to go do everything, right? And you don't want to say, and it's hard because you don't want to be like, oh, I'm not gonna, take this chance, because you might regret it if you don't take the chance. Because you're like, oh, you can look back at the game and say, man, I wish I would have done that. Like, you miss 100% of shots you don't take and all that stuff, and if I tried and failed, I'd rather go down swinging type of thing. All that, I hear you. But you can also run as fast as you want down the middle of a 7-lane intersection during rush hour, because you might get to the other side and it might be something good for you on the other side, But you'll probably also get by a car and die. So risk reward is important. Waiting for the right opportunity. And if you get knocked out of the game, or if you lose the numbers or whatever, there goes your opportunity. The smartest players play boring Survivor. Look at the best people, best winners. The ones who are not the are the best winners. The only one I can say who's an elite tier winner who's not boring is Tony Vlachos. And you have to be Tony to be able to do that. Only Tony can pull off that move. Only Tony can play the Tony game. So, because not everybody can do that. Not everybody has the personality, thank God. But Tony's one of the greatest winners of all time. But again, it's hard to duplicate that. Right? It's really hard to duplicate that. So the best winners, you'll get Kim Spradlin, one of the best games ever played. It was boring, one of the most boring seasons ever. But she dominated. Boston Rob dominated his season. Sandra played some really great Survivor. Was it flashy? Not at all. Right? So look at all the best winners. The people who are always thought of as some of the best players ever play the game. And they win boring seasons. If the producers want to add wrinkles to the game, make it interesting and everything like that, fantastic. That's their job. Your job not to make the game exciting. Your job is to win. Now, guess what? You may not get called back if you're not exciting. Guess what? Who cares? Have a good strategy. You don't need advantages. Have a good strategy. Be fun and confessional. That's how you get asked back. You don't have to make big moves. I mean, yes, Sierra did that. Look at how it worked out for her third time. It's not smart. So, let that be a lesson. Not everything dangling in front of you is a good thing, right? Even as I said, and Marianne learned that too, right? I was gonna put her on the bottom list too, because she found the advantage. She told her entire tribe, which is not good. She can't vote now. They know that. Until her idol is activated. Then once it's activated, They go tribal council. One of them are going home, so it makes sense to give it to her. As soon as they lose, it makes sense to give it to her. But she found an advantage. She's like, oh, I don't know if I should take it. Blah, blah, blah. It says beware. Okay. Curiosity is always a bad thing, though. You're bored out there, so you want to do something. So you take the advantage, and now you lose your vote. So, again, knowing when to strike is important. There's a lot more advantages early in the game, seemingly. And you're better off, and they're not as powerful, but if you wait to the end of the game, again, the later you have an advantage, the better you're going to be. So, losing your vote for pre-merge is not a good thing. And losing your post-merge is not a good thing either. Losing your whatever is not a good thing, but especially pre-merge when there's less numbers. And they need your vote to get the numbers, get the advantage. So, bad move by Chanel, for sure. And finally, the bottom three, number one in the bottom three, the biggest blunder of this season was Daniel. I don't know what the heck happened to him. Chanel was his number one ally, and Hai questions him about who you're voting for, why you're voting for Lydia. I thought you were on my side, and he says, "Oh, Chanel told me to vote for Lydia." Now, I didn't see that. Maybe it is what happened. I didn't know. I didn't see that. But either way, why are you saying that? I mean, he just folded completely. And I mean, like I said, if Hai asks you, "Oh, why did you vote for Lydia?" Well, I didn't trust Lydia. I thought you guys were going to vote for me. Make up something. So they said, I heard you were voting for me. I thought you were voting for me. So I had to vote for you. Even if it's not true. They voted for Jenny. Okay, well, I'm sorry. I thought you were voting for me. So that's why I voted for you. That's it. That's all you got to do. I mean, instead of just folding and throwing your number one ally under the bus, say, "Oh, yeah, Chanel. Yeah, she told me to vote for you." True or not, that's your ally. That's your number one. She was really angry. And maybe that was just a game they were playing. Or maybe that was, next level strategy, but I really highly doubt it. Maybe they're trying to pretend they're not close, so they talk about beforehand, say, "I'm going to throw you under the bus," and, just get all upset, but pretend you're mad about it. But I don't think that's it. I think he just folded. And, I was feeling really good about that. That was that ally, my number 3 and number 2, number 3 and number 1 in my power rankings, working together, trying to get to the end. It's good when, when the best, strongest players, seemingly stick together. Because, one of them's going to win, and it's going to be a good season. When all the threats stick together. And you pick off all the weak things early, But I don't understand that at all. Like, 100 times out of 100, I'd rather have an ally than a vote. I'd rather have a number one ally I can trust, ride or die, than an advantage than an idol. Like they said, the little advantages they got early on, the 3 of them, right? They have 3 advantages, and if you vote out 2 of them, then it becomes an idol. If you vote out, if you only vote out 1 and you use it, there's, it's a little less powerful. But I would rather have 2 allies and no idol. Right? 2 people who it's in their best interest to keep me, and it's in my best interest to keep them. We have mutually assured destruction if we vote each other out. I'd rather have those people than an advantage, than an idol. And maybe, he's closer with Hai, but Hai's closer with Lydia. Right? So Hai and Lydia are a tight pair. So you can be that 3, that's fine, but you got to bring in Chanel. Because now you're just 3, and you're a third in a group of 3. And, if it comes down to it, they're not going to keep you, they're going to keep each other. So if that's going to be the case, throw Jenny on the bus. Throw Mike on the bus. Who cares? You're close with Michael. You want to be close with Hai, you bring in Chanel. Because now it's your pairs swing over with them. And instead of throwing Chanel under the bus, say, "Hey, say Lydia," or say, "Jenny told me that you guys were voting for me, so that's why I voted for you." Just, I said, "Yes, you did, Jenny. Remember down the well? Well, you're lying. All right, switch, forget it. Let's vote Jenny out." And then you kill the witness. Right? And then you're fine. But it's absolutely pointless to do it that way. It's absolutely pointless to to throw your number one ally under the bus to make a different ally. Well, why would anybody trust you now? And Chanel called him a snake, and that's right. That's what he was. Spineless. Why would you do that? Not smart. Not smart all by Daniel, and he's number 1 on the bottom list with a bullet this week. I mean, just horrible gameplay. I mean, all the bad gameplay we had, unless this was some sort of setup, again, who knows, but I just don't see them doing it. I don't see them, saying, "Oh, we got to make sure make people think we're not close, blah, blah, blah." I don't see them doing that. he's going to do a ton of damage control or just vote her out. But either way, it's dumb because why burn that ally for no reason? I can see this as a Final Four, right? And you burn that ally, but like it's the fourth vote. It's not smart. Not smart all by Daniel, and really disappointing. So let's go ahead now and move to the top 3 of the week here. And this one, again, was hard because it wasn't a lot of good gameplay. But for number 3, I'm going to go with Lydia. Lydia did a good job. She was fine. Nothing... She was stronger. She was able to sell herself on why they should keep her over Jenny. Promised, and the thing is, right, she promised... The reason she stayed in the game... I mean, if it was a deadlock, whatever, but she would have been fine. But the reason that Daniel, I think, ultimately did move over, it was because Lydia promised him that, even if she wasn't, even if it says, "Oh, we'll never vote you out. You're my number one. I thought we were number one." She told him what he needed to hear, even if it's not true, because it very well may not be true. But she told him what he needed to hear, and he bought it and jumped over because he was desperate for somebody to tell him what he wanted to hear. That's what Daniel should have done for Chanel. He should have said, hey, my number one, what do you want to do? Let's talk about this together. Instead he threw her under the bus. Like honestly, the two that had to discuss, why couldn't Daniel just go off for Chanel and say, hey, what do you want to do? But he was too busy throwing her under the bus. Lydia, on the other hand, worked with Hai. Of course, it's a little different because Lydia's name's on the block, so she has to say what she has to say. But instead of her being like, yeah, you know what, screw you, Daniel, you voted against me, blah, blah. No, she's like, yeah, I don't know why you vote for me. I thought you're awesome. I want to be your ally. And he's like, really? Like, yeah, let's be friends. And he's like, okay, So she did a good job at that. Obviously, almost got voted out, so she was almost out of the game. But I don't know if they voted for her because she's a bigger threat or she's not going to the challenges. Probably because she's been sent out of the challenges. Probably why they threw the votes on her instead of Hai. But worked a good job. Worked him in well and got him to vote with her. So and against Jenny and saved her life in the game for sure. So good move there by Lydia. Number 2, I'm going with Jonathan in the top 3 here. Jonathan, again, he's been at the top a lot here. He's been getting talked about a lot as well. He's doing a really good job. He was obviously beast in the challenge. I don't like talking about the challenges too much, but he was just in that challenge. He was taller. He was able to hold up that ladder. Just the other tribes couldn't get through the water, and this tribe was almost already at the end. And it was, Jeff even said, "Wow, what a great job!" And of course, I think he's smarter than he's been given credit for. But also, if I'm him, I'm like, shut up, Jeff. Don't give me all this credit because people are going to see me at the merge and say, this guy's got to go. He's too much of a threat. Obviously, he's got a good social game. He seems like a nice guy, likable, everything like that. And he's working with Omar, which again keeps him from, kind of gives him his brain shield, and obviously, Omar, Jonathan's Omar's meat shield. But you gotta, so he knows his limitations, which is good, and that's a good thing to have when you're a beefy guy like that. But I wouldn't want Jeff calling out how great I was in challenges either. Thankfully, he never would be, because I wasn't that good in challenges. But I wouldn't want Jeff calling me out, saying how great I was in the challenges. But as a fan, you could say that was certainly a very good performance. So Jonathan's still in a good spot. I see him having a hard time winning unless he's in a really good alliance, and they go on the stretch and they all pick each other off, and he's the only one standing at the end. He's a likable alternative, then fine. But I just don't see him doing much else other than that. So we'll see. For number 1 player of the week this week, I gotta go with Hai. Nobody really played well. I don't think he necessarily even played well. He just survived, right? And if he pulled Daniel over to his side, then fantastic. He's got an alliance. From being the bottom, a bottom pair to at very least, if Chanel or whatever. At the very least, it's 2-2 or 3-2, whatever however you want to look at it. He's definitely in a much better spot. He pulled Daniel in. Daniel flipped on his ally, and when the tribe kind of imploded, Hai was there to pick up the pieces and use them to his advantage. So I think he did a really good job this week. Definitely the player of the week, and I don't think anybody really played fantastic this week, but Hai definitely did a better job than most. So I will say that Hai is this week's player of the week for episode number 3. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. You can like our Facebook page, facebook.com/PavementRoadProductions. You can email the show directly, pavementroadproductions@gmail.com. Subscribe, tell your friends, share the post, let us know how you're doing. We'll get week four's post out much quicker, so definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything, and we'll get out to you right away in much more timely fashion in this case. Thanks for listening. Thanks for interacting with the show, and I think that's everything. So until next time, I got nothing else for you, because the tribe has spoken.